I'm so glad for your invitation to join this event and make a small contribution and connect with so many people from different parts of India. As you know, Indian myself, I thought it's a great opportunity to share and exchange some and make some contribution towards academic scholars network in India. And this presentation I'm going to do is basically for early stage researchers, PhD students and postdocs, and may not be appropriate for experienced researchers. But I think the way I feel is some of the fundamentals of philosophy can be told in a simple storyline, and that's what I'm trying to do today. And then, as you mentioned, I'm happy to share and interact with the question and answer session about the publishing world from the point of view of being an editor of a journal. This journal we started in 2009, and it's more than 15 years now. So we have a lot of experience. We can share with you those experiences. So let me just quickly do some short presentation to help clarify some of the basic issues of research approaches, and particularly the philosophical assumptions behind research methodology and research approaches. We sometimes take it granted that we all know the fine differences. So I'll start with the knowledge production and the cycle, the circular motion of how knowledge is produced, reproduced, and modified. And then we will talk about some of the methodological differences. Sometimes we take it granted research methodology methods are same, and they are not same. They are different. And a lot of people, they interchangeably use methodology and methods. I think we should not do that. Some of the same way, sometimes we don't philosophical assumptions correctly when we do qualitative and quantitative research. So I tried to do in a simple way, explain these issues. I hope you all benefit from that. So we all know the knowledge production involves two approaches, and deductive approach. So when we talk about inductive, it's half cycle. We start from observation, experimentation, leading to generalization and theory. Deductive approach starts from the theory and generating hypothesis and testing hypothesis and accepting, rejecting theories. So this is a cycle. So let's see, when we talk about inductive process, this involves systematic observation and experimentation and producing theories or hypothesis making. So people in science, they start with, even nowadays in social science also, we have a lot of experiments. Generally we do a lot of observations and things like that. So we observe a phenomenon, pattern emerging from them when we look at the data we collected, and which leads to generalization and formulation of theories or formulation of hypotheses. So for a simple example, what we can say is, for example, when we look at the globalization trends across the world over the last, let's say, 20 years, you can make a generalization. When economy is fully integrated in the globalization process, It helps to increase trade, investment, knowledge flows, and this leads to higher income, but also it creates higher inequality. It's a kind of observation people have been done in many countries. So this is like you explore what is the impact of globalization, and you come for some uh, generalization. So when we talk about deductive approach, this is other way around. You have established theory, and it's a reverse of inductive process. So you start from established theories and try to explain, predict certain phenomena or event by hypothesis testing. So we call this process logical reasoning power of deduction process. For example, we already have theory of hypothesis globalization process helps to increase trade, investment, and technologies, and leads to higher income, but also it increases inequality. So suppose you want to investigate and explain why inequality has increased significantly. For example, in India, while it has seen the expansion of middle class in the same time period, so we can apply this and test it. So this is kind of one of the factors could be impact of globalization on Indian economy, and so you have kind of theory. From there you generate hypothesis and you test it and you prove the theory is right or wrong, or you also modify it. So this is a kind of we produce knowledge, sometime new, sometime it modifies the existing knowledge, sometime it replaces the existing knowledge. So this is a cycle from induction to deduction, deduction to induction. So you can illustrate in a simple diagram like this. So knowledge process is a kind of you start from observation, experimentation through inductive process leading to theories or hypothesis making, and then you uh, derive hypothesis and test hypothesis, and you approve, disapprove, or improve your existing knowledge. So this is a kind of simple understanding we can have the production of knowledge through inductive and deductive processes. So I think I explained this, yeah. So when we talk about hypothesis, it's a tentative proposition to explain an event or phenomenon. It's a formulated proposition for empirical testing, possibly causal links between concepts or variables. So when you talk about theory and hypothesis, theory is the elaboration of hypothesis. Hypothesis emerges from theory. So when you talk about generating hypothesis, you must root it to some theory. You can't generate hypothesis without theoretical basis. So hypothesis, if verified, becomes a theory. When we say good hypothesis, it should be based on strong theoretical framework, which must be very verifiable. Now, we have two traditions of research. When we do research, there are two traditions or paradigms. One is positivism or quantitative research. The other is phenomenology or constructivism, which is qualitative research. So when we talk about research methodology, it's a philosophy of research. When we talk about research method, it's technique of research. So we should not interchangeably use these two words. Methodology refers to rational and the philosophical assumption when you employ quantitative or qualitative approach. So it has final differences and meaning. So, for example, does a researcher believe in the paradigm of positivism? Means when you say, I'm a quantitative researcher, I'm following positivist approach. In your view, the fact exists independently, objectively of any theories and human observation. There's no bias, or you don't have any subjectivity there. So in case of phenomenology or constructivism, the fact or truth, what is we call fact, is not objective. It's socially constructed, it's more subjective. So these two differences very important to understand, because when we write, for example, you cannot use personal tone in quantitative papers. You cannot say we or I, because the data is impersonal. The paradigm positivism demands objectivity, where you don't have personal opinion or personal bias or personal interpretation allowed. So you have to use impersonal language when you discuss your results. The data speaks for yourself. And in qualitative research, researchers are allowed to have their perception and their biases in their interpretations. So that's why it's subjective paradigm. So you can illustrate in a simple diagram like this how you can capture these differences. So you have a research world, let's say, where you observe or conduct research and collect data. So you are a researcher in this quantitative paradigm. Research world and researchers are separate. You are apart from the research world. So your own opinion, your own values, your biases cannot interfere in what you do, what you observe. Okay. So emphasis must be measurement, unbiased, impersonal voice, and quantitative language, measurement and observations in objective observation based on robust data. So the data speaks for itself. In this case, the research world, you are part of the research world. The qualitative researcher is part of the research being conducted, and sometimes they go and do personal observation, join focus group, they do interview, and they interpret the interview in their own with their own interpretation, perception, and biases. So research is part of the world, research world. It's very subjective. Measurement is not important here. The important is meaning and interpretation. So socially constructed view of the research is presented here. It can be biased. It is most of the time. Trend to be interpretation is depending on the researchers, and researchers can use a personal voice in their writing, and mostly qualitative information. It's not measurable or quantitative. So what is research method? Method is simply a technique for collecting data, analyzing data. So example of qualitative methods: case study, ground theory, ethnography, content analysis, and data collection, for example, can be participant observation, focus groups, semi-structured interviews. Yeah. Example of quantitative methods can be hypothesis testing, power analysis, regression analysis, multi-level modeling, and so on. So data collection methods, mostly in, we all know questionnaire survey is the main instrument. for primary data collection for quantitative research. And qualitative research, there are different types of methods. As I mentioned, semi-structured interviews, focus group, participant observation, many other different methods as well. So people use interchangeably the methodology and methods, which is improper. And we have seen, for example, many quantitative papers, people don't use methodology at all. They just straight away go to methods because it's commonly, accepted that quantitative papers, they don't have to explain the methodology because it's positivism, it's quantitative papers are based on objective philosophy, and they just straight away go and explain methods. It's acceptable. But a lot of qualitative papers, you might have already observed when you read some of them, they sometimes interchangeably use methodology and methods. It should not be the case. It should be mainly methodology, and within that you can explain what methods you have used for collecting data, analyzing data, and so on. So now some of the paradigm assumptions we can identify when we talk about assumption, ontological assumption. This, what is the nature of reality? Do you perceive the world as subjective, or you perceive the world as subjective? So if you perceive the reality as more objective and singular, more measurable, then you have to employ quantitative research, positivism. And if you view the world as more subjective, and there are multiple realities, there are multiple interpretations, then you apply qualitative or some qualitative approach. In terms of epistemological assumption, that is, what is the relationship between the researcher and the world of research, and it's independent and not directly known. Researcher is different, and outside the research being conducted, there's no personal interference. In this case, in qualitative research, it's the opposite. Researcher interacts with the research world, so it's more subjective. Axiological assumption, what is the role of values? You have your own faith, belief, values. In this quantitative research approach, it should be value-free, unbiased. In qualitative research, it is accepted it can be value-laden and biased. In terms of rhetorical assumption, the language you use for the research writing, in quantitative research, it should be very formal, meaning impersonal. You can't use personal voice. You can't interpret yourself. You only allow the data to speak itself. Use measurement or quantified words. In case of qualitative research, it can be informal and it can be personal voice. You can say that, in your understanding, this is what is happening there. And mostly use qualitative words. You cannot have quantitative words in writing. Methodological assumptions is process of research. So mostly quantitative research, you do hypothesis testing, and so naturally you start with the deductive process and causal relationship, and you use static design, very context-free. There's, because it has to be objective. It must be lead to some generalization, prediction, explanation, and it should be accurate and reliable through validity and reliability. They always support the reliability and validity of their models and the data analysis and so on. On the other hand, qualitative is mostly exploratory, which starts with the inductive process, and different categories are identified during the research project process. It is context bound, it can be subjective, and it can involve biases, and it can lead to generating, some generalization based on reliability through verification. We talk about triangulation of different sources of data, and so there are different ways of validity and reliability established in qualitative research. So for those doing PhD, maybe I'll just briefly mention about research design. What is the meaning of research design? So it's like building your own house. Yeah, if you want to build a house, you need a design. Yeah, you need a blueprint. So you are your research. It's a plan of what you propose to do in your research project. It provides a picture for a whole, project before you start working, where to start, how to make progress, where to end. So it's a general blueprint that guides a researcher to process information, how to collect those information, how to analyze information, how to interpret, and how to write it up, and so there are different stages and steps to go through. The most important thing is identifying a research problem and coming up with your title of your project, purpose, why do you want to, what is the justification for this research, and conducting literature review, and clarifying and producing statement of the research problem, research questions, identifying research objectives, and identifying the boundary of your research, the scope of your research, what is included, what is excluded, what project, and various concepts, definition of these concepts, variables, how did you select these variables, as selection of hypothesis, selection of sample, and how to collect data and processing, analyzing, producing results from this data analysis. So this is all, it's like building your house. You lay a foundation, you build the walls, and you build the ceiling, then you start building inside, putting the floor on, all kind of decorations, so one by one, and electrification, and finally painting, and that is how we have to look at. So the other two things for especially young researchers, I would like to distinguish is conceptual framework and theoretical framework. Conceptual, we use a lot of, when you are doing a PhD thesis, you either do conceptual framework or theoretical framework, and you should know the difference between these two. Conceptual frameworks is the researcher's own idea on how the research problem will be explored or conducted, and it is something you are allowed to develop yourself. Yeah. This includes one or more formal theories, in part or whole, you can integrate them, as well as other concepts and empirical finding from literature. Uh, it helps to show relationship among different ideas and how they are related to the research uh, objective. So conceptual framework describe the relationship between specific variables identified the study by the researcher themselves. It also outlined input, process, output of the whole investigation. On the other hand, the theoretical framework is it must be based on existing theory or theories, and it provides general representation of relationship between various things in a given phenomenon. So, when you use conceptual framework, you have a lot of freedom of how you design your own research. But when you apply theoretical framework, you are guided by the theory or theories. You cannot just play around and introduce your own concepts and your own, what you want to do. So that must be very clear, especially when you're doing PhD. This difference must be taken into account when you present your theoretical framework or conceptual framework. The purpose is same. Huh? Both are they guide your research. They place similar load. They both explain the trajectory, the, the roadmap of your research, and it helps connect with theoretical constructs. But one is more rigid and one is more flexible. So this is something we need to understand, especially for early stage researchers. I hope it is helpful for them. I think I have come to the end of my presentation. So now I will, okay, we can discuss, yeah, either from my presentation or outside, like I suggested, we can talk about the journal publication issues, both. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. If any participants have any queries and questions regarding the publication and regarding the research design, which kinds of the research design and methodology should be right and mentioned in the paper publication. So you can ask to Professor Baskaran sir. Now session is open, so you can discuss with him.
Briefly, let me explain our journal. Huh?
Yes.
So our journal is African Journal of Science, Technology, Innovation, and Development. Uh, we founded this journal in 2009. At that time, we were debating how to, the title of the journal, whether we should have International Journal of, Science, Technology, Innovation. But then we thought there was a big, publication vacuum in this STI field in Africa. Not many journals were there to help, especially emerging scholars to publish. We decided to name the journal, specifically focused on Africa. But then we decided to have 75-25 ratio. Like we will publish 75% of the papers from Africa and 25% of the papers from outside Africa. And we will have experts from all over the world in our editorial board. And the only problem is we could not accept special issues where we can invite engineering, pure science experts to, as a guest editors to produce science, pure science and pure engineering special issues. Generally, we kept to social science focused and some sort of computer science related papers for the general issues. So that's our focus. We publish, until last year, we published 7 issues Now, from this year, we are publishing 8 issues per year. Until last year, we published both online version as well as hard copy journal issues. This year, our publisher Taylor and Francis came to us saying that they are switching to 100% online publication only because there's almost no demand for hard copy publications from the customers. So this is the broadly our journal, and it's a multidisciplinary journal within the scope of STI, and sometime we publish slightly outside, but development related issues. The core is science, technology, innovation, policy oriented research papers. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And
Another thing I have to say, since COVID, the volume of submission we are receiving has doubled and tripled. I can't understand why and how it is happening. Usually, we used to get before COVID around 400 manuscripts per year. It jumped to 600, 700. Now we are above 800 manuscripts per year. 830 last year. We can publish maximum 100, 110 papers per year. So the volume of papers we are receiving is 7, 8 times of our capacity to publish. So I just want to inform you. Yeah. Yeah. Any questions are welcome. Thank you.
yes, so participants, if you have any queries and doubts, so please unmute yourself and ask your queries and doubt to respected sir.
Hi, good evening, sir. Shall I?
Yes,
Yeah. Please, please. Yeah.
So my question is that the publication, do we have a paid or it is free? If suppose if I wanted to publish a research paper in your
Yeah.
journal, it will be a costing or else it will be a free. And the second question, sir, do we will be going to get an impact factor of that if we will be publishing?
Okay. Our journal is Scopus Q2 ranking journal.
yes,
We are
Okay.
almost moving to Scopus
She
Q1.
called me actually. I was not able to understand because she was speaking Tamil. But I
So,
gave the OTP.
oh, my voice is low.
No, sir, your voice is good.
Okay.
So could
Okay.
we get a link? Could we get a link where do we not exactly have to go? Even myself find a complicated while even there is the clone journals are there in the market and we used to work behind the papers and if it is not going to get in any kind of the recognition and impact factor, somewhere it is impacting our efforts also. So my question is
Okay.
this only, sir. Could you
I'll
please
share my
share the
journals.
link?
Thank you. I'll share just a minute. Give me a minute. I'll show you our journal's site.
I think yes sir, you can share, but I have share your journal in also to participants sir. Please share sir, please share your screen in this way. Hmm. Yes sir.
Okay. This is our
Yes,
journal.
yes sir, please go to matrix
Okay,
in
sir.
the matrix.
Yeah. I'll show you the metrics.
Matrix. In above, please above sir. Yeah,
For the journal. Yeah.
above, about no, ऊपर above sir.
Yeah.
Forward.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
This is our journal metrics.
Okay,
Uh,
sir.
We are currently we are in Q2, tier Q2 Scopus
Correct.
index journal, and we are expecting to move to Q1. When we move to Q1, it is like almost moving to like Web of Science
Mhm.
Q4. So Q1 Scopus can be like Q4 in Web of Science. Some of this it's like a overlapping band. So
Mhm.
we are trying. We hope very soon we will move to Q1 Scopus tier. Yeah, yeah,
Okay, so I got my answer. Thank you so much.
yeah.
Even I'll try to contribute. Let me go through with the details, and even I will be sharing with my colleagues because here we used to expect the papers, but not getting a proper journals, we used to stop ourselves. Thank you
Oh,
so much, sir.
all right. Welcome. Thank you so much. Yeah. So we, there are a few things. Sometime people, when you submit to conference, you're deriving paper from thesis, you need to acknowledge that this was presented in a conference, and or sometimes it can create problem in they do originality test first. When you submit a paper, it goes to originality test. So when they see about uh, 18%, I think 18% similarity of text, uh, then it is considered some kind of plagiarism. It's not like authors plagiarize. There are technical issues. When you submit a paper to a conference and submit the different version of same paper to a journal, the system, they call it authentic software. So we generally use universities, we use Turnitin. So it's similar software, more powerful. They use very powerful software, and it picks up your own work and it matches with. So that creates problem. So if you acknowledge properly and provide references to your conference papers, discussion papers, working papers, sometime thesis, uh, that will help reduce this originality failure problems. So I hope the young people who try to submit papers from their thesis, you must always acknowledge properly your thesis and provide reference for the thesis. Then when you submit a paper to journal like ours, and they run originality test, it will not fail. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Sure, sir. Uh, any other participants have any queries?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Good
madam.
evening, sir.
Yes, madam.
Yeah. Good
Good
evening.
evening, sir. Related with your publications journal, I wanted to know how much time it takes for reviewing, like uh,
Okay. It's a very
get
good
published.
question. Thank you so much. You asked me this question. So I really want to discuss this with you people. You know, journal editors, we don't, sometime initially, for example, I'm traveling. I may not be able to focus on journal work for 1 or 2 weeks. So other than that, we regularly try to speed up the process of review. And in our journal, we have associate editors with the expertise in different field of expertise. So when I receive a paper in my dashboard, I just assign to a relevant associate editor to handle your paper. And they look at it and they decide. If they decide to invite a reviewer, they invite people. The system generates randomly the reviewers. So we go along with the system's names, and we invite people. Sometimes there are two things happen. Sometimes the reviewer we invite, they decline to review. Sometimes they accept, then they fail to submit review. So there are problems like that. So we like to speed up and do the review as early as possible or as minimum days as possible. But the problem, practical problem we are facing is finding reviewers. Almost everybody is so keen on publishing. When we approach for review, uh, we are stuck with, honestly, so many papers in our system. We need 2 review reports to pass the review process. Unless we receive 2 review report, we cannot move on to the next stage. We cannot send you reports. So only when we receive 2 reports, then we send you reports, then you revise and you resubmit, then the process goes. Again, we invite one of the reviewers, original reviewers, and they go through your review revised paper and they recommend accept or another review, one more round of revision. So this process, the first stage, sometimes we get one report, we are stuck there. And the second reviewer, either they fail to submit report or we don't find the second reviewer. So I request all of you, when you send papers, when you are desperate to publish and get reports so quickly, journals approach you for review, please accept. Try to help the journals also, because some journals they charge money and all, but we don't charge. We just it's a free, no fee involved. Of course, there is open access. The Taylor and Francis, they have policy of open access, so you can say, I want to publish my paper open access. I'm willing to pay from my project. That's possible. But we don't demand submission fee or publication fee, nothing. So we depend on the goodwill of reviewers. So when we approach reviewers, sometimes they do quick review and that paper moves faster. Sometimes we get stuck with one review report, second report is not coming in, and we struggle to find the second reviewer. So this is a very complicated review process. We don't slow at all. We don't delay at all. We always try to complete the peer review as soon as possible and move the paper to production. So in our experience, when we send the report and you resubmit quickly, from that point on, it goes faster. And the production, usually we produce paper and immediately goes into online. And there are so many technical issues. For example, sometimes journal, when authors submit, they give one email, and when we are producing, we try to send proof, they move to another university, they forgot to inform us, and we can't reach them. So there are issues like that, and there are other issues. People sometimes they want to remove authors, include new authors. It's not acceptable to journal, unless you have a very valid justification. Recently, I found one author sent request for including 3 new authors. The paper was minor revision. I just ask you, if you get a minor revision recommendation from reviewers, where is the need for 3 new authors to improve your paper? Hmm? So sometimes people, I don't understand why they do this kind of. So it delays review process, production process. So what I'm trying to say is, when we request reviewers, to review papers if they accept and if they follow our time frame. Usually we give 45 days, and the whole process can be done, everything goes well, 6 months maximum, give or take some, including proofreading. Everything can be done within 6 months. But sometimes the peer review takes time. We found problems with the review reports, and sometimes papers fail originality tests. Then keep sending up communications, are delayed with this. There are some practical problems which can delay the paper. So if everything goes well, I'm very sure we can publish in 6 months.
Thank you, sir. So along with, I have one more query. Like, we have more than, if we in one article we have more than two authors. Like, how the points we get to each author, first author, second author.
No, I think that's up to you and your university policy for publication. So, for example, every university, they have their key performance indicator metrics. For example, in our university, equally, whether you are a first author, you are a corresponding author, you are a co-author, everyone was getting equal weightage points until this year. This year, they changed their policy. For example, if you are a corresponding author, you get more weightage, and if you are co-author, you get less. If you are first author or second author, you get more weightage. Whether you will, if you are, then also among your your joint authorship project, you have to agree who will be first author, who will be corresponding author. So this is depending on your personal, your institution policy and your arrangement with the co-authors. Yeah, the journal has nothing to do with this issue.
Mhm. So you being an experienced in this field, and you have lots of publications. Like, uh, uh, I just want your suggestion for us new budding writers to, like, to increase our chances of getting accepted in the journals, like you have mentioned, like Scopus.
Okay. Let me say something. In my journal, it's a policy journal. So we give priority to STI topics. Then maybe because it's Africa, a lot of people work on environment, agriculture, those kind of topics also we give priority. The paper quality in terms of data, uh, we mostly prefer very robust data-based papers, not conceptual papers or literature review-based papers. So the data, sometimes people use from secondary databases, and sometimes people collect their own data through interviews and questionnaire survey. So whatever may be whether it is secondary based data or primary database papers, the paper will expect robust data, sound data used for writing a paper. We don't encourage conceptual and literature review based papers. Also, we don't want extremely technical papers. There's a policy paper. If you want complicated econometrics to be used in a paper, you don't target a journal like us. There are technical journals for such papers, so it may be sound data and all, but it's too technical. It has no policy. That's not much interesting from policy perspective. So we tried, and on top of it, we must understand our own difficulties when we receive 800 papers in a year. Even very good papers we end up rejecting because sometimes we cannot accommodate all of these papers. So very competitive. The world is becoming competitive because every country now insisting on young scholars to publish, even if they